Thank you. Thank you and welcome. My name is Efthymiadis. I'm a cloud engineer by aspiration and a senior manager by appointment. I work in Deloitte, and we're going to speak today about how scaling a monolith is a four-letter word. I don't know if you're familiar with the term. A four-letter word is a euphemism for profanity, and this describes pretty much our journey to this project. But it was also a journey that we learned a lot, and we came up stronger. So the requirement was that to manage to build, because we built it from scratch as Deloitte, a high traffic web portal that must support up to some millions of users per 15, 20 minutes. The goal was to reach 4 million users in a 20-minute window. The constraint was that we had to take the website as it is, the web portal, that it was a PHP-based CMS monolith, and try to apply infrastructure changes in order to scale it. We couldn't apply any breakdowns into microservices or serverless compute, the serverless paradigm that we kind of like. Because we had to also ship the development really, really fast, and the CMS was the solution. So we were under pressure, and we had to manage more than just the cloud infrastructure. So I'm going to give you a bit of surroundings of what the project was, why we made these choices, and how we end up with the architectural solution that we proposed. The first of all was a tight delivery deadline. We had to start the project within a 5-month window that incorporated the design, the development of the backend and the front-end clients, one for mobile, one for web, integration with external systems, integration with CRM, integration with e-commerce, the scalability that was also a challenge, and we had to deliver the development environment in order to enable the developers within 20 days, sorry. How did we manage this? As Deloitte, we are lucky enough to possess an army of professionals, and we pretty much call to a small army of people on our help. As you can see here, we had about 10 people working on the CMS and the CRM from Deloitte Digital. We had 7 people from my team, from cloud engineering, with me included. We had around 4 security experts, again from Deloitte, that were advising us and were giving us guidance and some pre-configured tools to use. We had 7 people working on the content, because we had to migrate and create the content from scratch, and also on PMO's activities. And we were also lucky to have 4 very senior members of the team that was interfacing with the client and was pretty much conveying the difficulties and the timeline. Now, on the application, we also had to do a lot, as I told you, because first of all, it was a web portal. Secondly, we had to do a separate mobile client that was serving another purpose. We had to develop the CMS that was the backbone for both, the CRM, in order to integrate with around 10 external systems and also to facilitate some logic, and integrations between the CMS and the CRM, and the CMS and directly with an e-commerce platform. We've chosen some smart open source software solution in order to address the web and the mobile client. We pretty much employed a Drupal implementation that could serve both, with several plugins. Also on the CRM, we used a platform as a service, a cloud-based platform as a service, a quite known CRM, Salesforce, in order to speed up the development and also to facilitate the usage, the demands. And we managed to also use a lot of reusable components due to the nature of the CMS. And finally, on the cloud, we had to build the cloud foundation. We had to build 4 isolated environments: dev, test, QA, and prod. We had to, of course, be compliant with several security protocols and specifications from the client, and we had to, sorry for this, and we had to also connect with monitoring service, with KIAM services, etc., and the DevOps pipelines. And we were lucky enough to have a lot of skilled people within the team. We leveraged also, and that was also a strong part, on Deloitte knowledge and the network and the deep network that we have to gain experiences where we lack when we weren't that experts. For example, on the Kubernetes cluster that we're going to see before, we haven't used EKS at the moment. We have used mostly serverless paradigm with Fargate or Elastic Container Services. So we were lucky enough to have some people to guide us on how to build the Kubernetes cluster, and also the security part. The team of security was also highly involved to guide us. Now the targeted architecture. What we have done specifically as cloud engineers in order to manage to scale this, again with restrictions that we cannot break anything on the code base. We had to rely solemnly on the infra. First of all, we containerized the applications, of course. We applied auto-scaling with AKS, load balancing. We rely a lot on caching. We had 3 different layers of caching. Most of it was coming from CloudFront in order to speed up the delivery of the content. We had something like 80% cache to CMS ratio on the hits. We were using Elastic Cache in order to cache queries and make the response of the CMS faster. And finally, we also had implement EFS as a shared file structure, so the nodes and the pods within the Kubernetes cluster could share caching for the CMS specifically. And finally, the RDS optimization that I'm going to speak about it a bit later because it was one of the problems we faced. So as you can see, the architecture is pretty much looking like that. We have a bunch of monitoring services. We have the CloudFront that has been served via an Amazon S3, of course. We have also firewalls in place and network isolation. And via an internet gateway, we are passing into the load balancers, and according to the traffic, the Kubernetes cluster scales. I lied a bit about the serverless part. We did use a serverless integration layer for communicating with the external services, but that was a really small part of the application, and it didn't play that much role in the final scalability of the system. And we also used 2 read replicas. We had to use just one RDS. We couldn't have multiple database solutions. So we had one main RDS and 2 replicas in order to speed up some reads. Now, what was the bump on the road? We had to run a series of tests. Okay, as I say here, protect your node. We had to run a series of tests where we were managing to see how much traffic the application could withstand. We ran the usual load test, stress test, spike test, and soak test, and we figured out that after 2 million users, the application was shut down. We were facing outages. And we managed to identify that there was a lot of connections that were happening to the database, and the database couldn't absorb this workload, so the database was unresponsive, and then the Redis part was unresponsive, and finally the website was going down. After a lot of trial and error, we end up implementing some changes. First of all, we resized our Kubernetes cluster completely. The initial design was for 5 pods, 3 to 5 nodes each on each pod, going up to 45 nodes for the whole Kubernetes cluster. We minimize that and we scale up the nodes in order to have 1 to 3 pods in each node. And we also scale up the database, and we applied optimization with connection pooling. That was the DB resizing. Then we have to do some Apache tweaks. We increased the memory limit on Apache in order to allow us to have a bigger response window and avoid the outage. And lately, we also implemented some configuration within the Kubernetes cluster, and we went from node port to cluster IP in order to manage the ingress traffic better. So finally, we survived. Everything went all right. We managed to deliver the application. We managed to hit the goals that were set as hard requirements, the volume. We also managed to contain the team because the team was really exhausted by long working hours, a lot of overtime, a lot of pressure from both the internal and the external stakeholders. Finally, also the deadline was moved a bit because the client decided to add some extra features on the portal, and it helped us also. And my final resolution during my experience is this, that nothing changes the power of the team. If you can rely to really strong people and really good engineers, and you have a good depth on your team, you can overcome really challenging projects. This is pretty much my presentation, and I'm leaving you some room for question and answers. Thank you very much for participating. I hope you liked it.